Hello and welcome to Electricpreneur Secrets, the Electrician's podcast. I'm your host, Clay. What did I call myself yesterday? Clay,
The
the
pleasant peasant.
peasant Newmeyer at your service. Here with my partner, esteemed co-host, as always, Joseph, the sales bot, Lucani. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm having a great day, man. I was going to say we got a chance to do some inside training. We got to hang out a little bit today. It's been a really good one. I'm feeling on cloud nine.
Yeah, I'm pumped about the same stuff. And today, Joe is helping me master sales as we do every day here with you guys. Master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. See, I can mess that up, and I do maybe once a week because we got rid of all the fancy shit. There's no button we push. You can see my mouth moving if you're with us live in the Facebook group, Engaging VIP. And if you are, then you're also seeing Steve post a big win, 22K week. So shout out to Steve. Awesome, brother. Good one, good one. And if you're on the inside track, you see wins like that every day of the week in our group chat. Guys talking tens of thousands of dollars in wins. And sometimes it's health, family, business. And just, hey, guys, I slept this week. Hey, guys, I found balance with my family this week while the business continued. And everything that comes with that. So super proud of all of our Electripreneurs, whether you're on the inside track or just listening to us for the first time. Welcome. We got a great show again today following what we had yesterday. And if I can ramble on just a moment longer, we were just talking about our mentors. My mentor, Ed Milet, one of my favorites. I listen to him fairly religiously. And one of Joseph's mentors, help us out here.
Sadhguru.
So Ed Milet interviewed Sadhguru, and we were just talking about that because Sadhguru just wrote another book. The guy's on like book 94, but this stuff ties perfectly into our conversation today, and it's why we had to come back and do another one about being in that slump. Because yesterday, I think we were on different levels. I think Joe was talking more like the personal funk that you can get in and really have trouble getting up in the morning. And I was thinking like business context slump. And so we had a good combination. It was a great episode. But today we're bringing it back to talk more to the business and sales slump, just to really cover all bases.
Sounds great. I'm pumped to dig into it, man. Oh, don't worry. There's no rambling on your end, man.
That was a monologue and a half.
But it's worth it though. You know, when it's our podcast, we're allowed to monologue every now and then, right?
Yep. So I want to touch on something because it's gonna tie us from yesterday to today anyway, because Sadhguru, or the name I said is Deepak Chopra. Am I saying that right?
Chakra, yeah.
Okay. So he was speaking to how all of our beliefs, how we see the world, even science is a system of thought. And this is a really interesting concept, because it kind of comes back to, and I'm going to try not to butcher this, but it comes back to this funk that we can be in personally and this slump, and realizing, like you said yesterday, we are not the problem. And there's another phrase I'm going to tie into this school of thought that comes from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, where we say the map is not the territory. And every person has their own unique version of this world that we live in, right? This is just our perception. And so if we're getting stuck in those slumps, if we're getting stuck personally in our vision, and we just feel like we can't get out of it, isn't that the first step then to recognize that we are not that problem? And this is just one view, one little micro view in the billions and billions of absolute, things that had to line up for you to be here.
It's absolutely amazing the level of intention that had to go into it. And, the thing that Sadhguru had told me, or in the podcast, granted, I haven't talked to the guy personally, but the fact was, then when we say that we are not our thoughts, is very, very helpful. Because if you can't get out of that mentality, you're not going to be able to focus on becoming the solution. So I want to dig into it a little bit and say, can I speak directly to the salespeople in the group? Anyone who's ever had to be in these situations?
I'd be mad if you didn't, Joe.
Awesome. So we're in a situation, guys. All of you have all been here. Anyone who's listening to this, you know what I'm going to get into. When we have these slumps, they happen, right? Sometimes we justify them as the season. We justify them as the economy. We justify them as the president. It doesn't matter. We always come up with a reason why it's not moving forward. But very rarely do we ever point the finger back at us and say, what did I do wrong? It's almost always easy to blame someone else, but it's very hard to blame yourself. Now, with that being said, what we've done is we've designed a self-diagnostic process. And this is where it becomes so important. So Clay, I want to give you two different scenarios. I want you to tell me what you think. So scenario one, you have 3 to 4 calls on the calendar today. You go to your first call, you strike out. Go to your second call, you strike out. Go to your third, fourth, and for some reason, you just can't seem to bring it home.
I'm feeling
Then at
low.
the end, you do. What was that?
And I'm feeling low at this point, by the way.
Exactly. You're feeling pretty low. But it's either low or angry or frustrated or depressed or exhausted. Whatever it is, it's usually not a positive emotion. Then at the end, that person does the post-call diagnostic and realizes, oh, I didn't bond with the customer and get my first through third commitments. The other way of going about it is saying, what if you had stopped at the first call and simply said, after call 1, post-call self-diagnostic? You would be able to recognize, what did I do wrong on this call? Then when you go to the second call, you have the ability of pausing and pivoting, because now that you know what to look out for, you're better. Out of the two options, what do you feel like more technicians are willing to do?
Well, path of least resistance seems to come into mind, and it's always going to favor kind of blame, excuses, denial, or as we say, being in bed with the devil, instead of playing above the line, taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up anyone's ass and say that you yourself are responsible for everything that happens out there. Mm. But I will say, if you will take responsibility, you can begin to have control over as much as possible out there.
Correct.
Is that fair to say?
That actually is perfect. That's exactly what I was trying to go for. Perfect. Because the thing is that when you try to blame something other than yourself, you become negative with it. And you're less likely to see the problem, right? Because it's easy to say, I had one bad call, that customer was just an asshole. Then you go to the second call and you're like, they're just tire kickers. Then you go to the third one and you're like, yeah, it's the economy. They're getting a quote for 2024. And you start to realize at the end, you've just blown through 3 calls. Likely you paid $200 to $250 per call for that. So you're already $750 deep and you've come back with $0.
Yeah. Can we take a time out there? Because you said something really important. I want to tie something else to it.
Sure, go for it.
And for those listening, Joseph we were talking sales earlier, and he wants me to use that timeout more often in the process. So I wanted to use it there for you right there and be a good student as well.
Good job.
If we're paying that much for these calls, it's worth the investment of everything we have. And the investment of everything we have is not just running the play while we're person to person as good as possible. It's also what we do in the background to make sure that we have the data from running that play, both in our KPIs daily and in our post-call diagnostic, self-diagnostic, just to really tie this together. If we're not doing that, are we getting that maximum value from this call?
Probably not. We're really not. And a good way of looking at it,
trends are going to begin to show us some stuff. If you don't have it, then that's another bit. Your cost per acquisition is there still. That didn't change, but your leverage of it is not there. That seems to be a big detriment. Go ahead.
No, you're completely right. I like what you're going through. A good way of looking at it is, if you go to a call, it's almost like you're going to a poker table. You put your $250 ante on the table and you get to decide whether you walk away with that ante or not. If they choose not to move forward, doesn't mean that they have to make a decision same day, but it's either I'm going to get a yes, I'm going to get a no, or I'm going to get a rescheduled for when I can get a yes or no. If you don't get any of those outcomes and it's just email it over and we'll get back to you, that money is sitting there on the table and it goes back into the dealer's pocket. We want to make sure that if you keep that mentality, you treat each call as valuable. Because if you knew that you were leaving $250 left on the job site, like you left a Milwaukee power drill, wouldn't you go back and get it?
Yeah.
So the same logic applies here. That's why our post-call and pre-call process are so important. A lot of times when you get into a funk, there's usually only one or two little things wrong with the process. Not that the process is wrong, but you're just doing one or two small things wrong. And as a result, it's not building. So, like, as an example, you have something to add?
When you're ready. I don't
Oh,
want to
sure.
cut you off mid-flow.
No worries. As an example, what I'm thinking is this. You start the call and you say, you know what, I'm going to do everything right. And instead of saying to protect both you and us, we're going to look at the main electrical system first. Instead of saying that, you let the customer lead you by the nose to the kitchen table or to the master bedroom to look at the fan. One step wrong and you've lost your process. All you have to do is readdress that one moment and you'll be back on point. So you were saying?
And just to be clear, what happens once you lose your way in the process? Very difficult to come back. And so we're shooting from the hip again, relying on personal experience, knowledge, and alignment and character, relatability to help carry us to a finish line or some point where we can recognize the process again and anchor back in. But that's all by chance. But something you said earlier that was really important is sometimes people will feel like, okay, you know, path of least resistance. I don't want to do the KPI because that's an extra thing. And what if the data tells me I have to do something else? I already don't have enough time. I'm already wearing too many hats. But what you said was, what if we're just doing a thing or two wrong or too much? Sometimes it's taken back a little bit. Sometimes we're just saying too much in a moment. We're doing an extra thing that needs to go away. And what this data really does, guys, I got to tie something else in. Every once in a while, we tie in an elevation law. And yesterday, we tied one in, law of open cycles. Today, I'm tying in the law of separation. This is crucial to your success as an entrepreneur. And some of us get it. If you're an accountant brain, numbers guy, then this is going to come intuitive. But if you're an entrepreneur because you like significance, don't feel bad. That's okay. Significance is one of the 6 basic human needs, and people feel it in different priorities. If being significant in your community, if helping people is very important to you, then the law of separation is going to be extra important. Because when you lead with significance and contribution, what happens when you get those no's? It's not just you. It's what you look like to everyone else. It's the people you're not able to serve. And that's emotional. And so what happens next is we're going to make decisions based on what? Emotion.
Yeah.
Law of separation helps us with that if we have data. Because I can tell you, 80% of the world, this is going to sound crazy, but 80% of the world right now is doing something to fix a problem that is not the problem at all. It's the symptom. Think about that for a second. So wouldn't it make sense to let data help us with finding the actual problem and just making those slight adjustments to chip away at exactly that?
Can I tie into what you're saying that I think would
Please
really,
do.
really help?
Please.
So Clay is speaking towards something known that I've always considered called clarity in the numbers, right? Numbers are never fun to look at. No matter who you are, they're very not like something you'd love to look forward to sitting down. Like, oh boy, I can't wait to hit up my Excel spreadsheet. That's what I want to do on a Friday night.
Yeah.
But your numbers are your clarity. Don't seek confidence. If actually we spoke about Sadhguru earlier, I'm gonna stitch him in this.
Yeah,
Sadhguru taught that we don't want to seek confidence. We want to seek clarity, because you could confidently be wrong. But when you have true clarity of a situation, you know whether or not it's right. And when you have clarity, you'll know what your next best decision is. So with that being said, that's why I feel like when you're in a slump, to kind of tie it back to the beginning, we have to recognize that we are not our thoughts. And in addition to that, that we can be confident about the wrong thing. So when you finish your call, look at your post-call diagnostic and enter the information impartially. When you do that, remember, the system won't fail you. You only fail the system. It's specifically designed to keep you in line when you normally wouldn't have been. So when you complete your post diagnostics after every single call, you gain clarity. And maybe instead of going 0 for 4, you'll go 1 for 4. And that alone is a win because you would have gotten something you normally wouldn't have gotten. In addition to that, as you go into it and you recognize that these calls are so important, you'll recognize where you're making consistent error. Because if you're like, hey, I'm not getting my commitment 1, and you go back again, you're like, I'm still not getting commitment 1. And then the third call, you're like, I didn't get 1 or 2. Now you're recognizing why the calls keep failing.
And you just touched on something that's as important and ties perfectly into this. And I've had a mentor and coaches along the way help with this all the time, guys. Again, when there's emotion attached, sometimes you don't even realize it, but there's this one telltale sign that you're emotional about something. You begin to explain to the person who's going to help you troubleshoot, or anyone for that matter, and you're just venting what's going on, and you start to stack problems together.
Bingo.
The logical brain can solve any problem it sets its mind to. There might be some context issues there in that how I said that, but anyway,
It's it. I get what your point.
But again, multitasking is not a strength. We have to solve one problem at a time. And you're talking about, what if it's just the same first commitment, but you kept looking at it as, I lost 4 calls today. That's too big of a range, right? We might as well put a pitcher out in center field and put you at home plate and say, look, if a ball comes this way, swing at it, hit a home run. It doesn't make any sense. It's too big of a range. We have to narrow that down. As soon as you start to say, hey, my first commitments are out of line here, something's going weird, that's a single problem. But you stack them up, A, you'll be overwhelmed, and B, you'll be unable to solve those. Now, as a tangent here, guys, I put the link to the YouTube, to the Ed Milet and Sadhguru interview. It's called Unlock Your Limitless Mind. If you're with us in the Facebook group, then you're seeing that in the live chat right now. Joe, what do you think about this stacking problems? Is that in line with what you were thinking already?
Yeah, it does. And it's once again back to what you were saying, because I wanted to originally start off by saying, no matter where you are, you can control certain aspects of the call. That's why we designed the pre-arrival and the post-call steps. Believe it or not, there are a lot of small things that go on in a call that could take the customer away from wanting to work with you. Whether that means that you smell like cigarette smoke, where you parked your van, whether there was garbage in the front of it, how you walked out, whether you were smiling, where your hands. There's so many individual steps that you can take. And if you don't do one of those steps, it doesn't mean you're going to lose the job, but to the right customer, it could dissuade them. So the lessons that I've learned over the years was that we can't control everything, but wouldn't it make sense to control what you can control, so that at the very least, the small things don't trip you up? And if you're going to lose the call, lose it because the customer has given you a major objection and not because you just showed up with no locks on your sleeve. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah. Serenity prayer all day, every day. And I'm not even going to try anymore because I butcher it every time. Do you know it better than me? Help us out with the serenity prayer.
So it's, may I have the courage to accept the things that I can, the strength, I had to go. It's courage, strength, wisdom. So may I have the courage to accept the things that I can, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, something along the lines. Granted,
definitely highlighting, hey, there are things in your control and there are things out of your control. And I've said this before, guys, one of my favorite rants, because it's in your favor to inspire you. How do I know that you're the best electrician in your area for the job, the sale that you're going to right now or later this afternoon? Because you're listening to us. From what I gather, you want to be a premium service provider. And that's things that are in your control. So if you dial in your sales process and you're able to connect with this customer, serve at the highest level, get the job you deserve, everybody wins. That's my best assumption, because you're within one of the things that I can control. I can put positive energy out there right here in this crazy technology time we live in, the age of information. You guys can hear this inflection in my voice, the rate at which I'm speaking. You can probably hear my heart beating for you right now. If you take that energy and you get this job, you win and your customer wins. And I know that because you are the best option, because you're
Mm.
trying to be the premium service provider. And that is something that's in your control. Whether they choose you or not is out of your control, outside of the process you use to communicate with them. Now, all I think we're saying here today isn't that worth investigating. Go ahead. Hand was
Bingo.
up. Please
I
take
didn't.
it.
I didn't want to break the flow. We're trying. I know in the lives, you and I are trying to have a respectful balance where it's like I'm trying not to interrupt you, and you're trying to interrupt me. But anyway, the point that I was trying to come up with was that we also have to remember that we can't control what we can't control, but all those small little steps do add up. They really, really, truly do. And I would rather know that we've done everything that we can to say, am I the problem or am I not? So if I can give any advice at this moment, I want to communicate that you can choose to step away mentally from the blockage. Now, that may not make sense, but what I meant by it was this: the blockage is what you have internally, something that is keeping you held back. If you believe that this call is not going to go well, the call will not go well. If you believe that the call will go well, you're more likely to see success from it. So, is there anything that you can do, even if you know you're going to a bad situation? Is visualize it going well. So many times we don't because we've already assumed that it won't. But instead, why not see it in the reverse light? If you're going to be paranoid, why not at least be in a mindset of, I'm going to be paranoid that they're going to want to help me? I'm going to believe that everyone's out here to get me better. So why not visualize yourself shaking the hands, closing the deal, collecting the check, making your customers happier? If you're playing that in your head, you're only going to fill yourself up with a positive mentality. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
100%. And I want to
Okay.
add some important verbiage in there. Solving their problem,
Mm-hmm.
solving their need is more important than them giving you a certain size of check.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I believe our process is built entirely around, is making sure that you're the chosen solution for their problem, no matter what size the check. Either way,
Mm-hmm.
you're taking an investment of time into this customer, and that's worth a long-term relationship. So conversion rate gets priority. I'm trying to make a
Mm-hmm.
customer today. Is that fair to say,
That's
Joe?
brilliant. That literally, I know you and I are playing almost like tennis on this one. We're just going back and forth, but you're so freaking right. Because way too often when people go into slumps, it's because they're trying to swing for the fences. They're looking at it and saying, like, I remember once again, when I started off, I was surrounded by HVAC techs. Everyone was selling condensers and equipment and these large scale tickets. And here I am trying to peddle a $2,000 to $5,000 panel change. It didn't make a lot of sense. I thought that I was really being held back. And it's a shame because when you start swinging for bigger tickets, you stop being as on code with the customer. When you want to get wins, you have to remember it doesn't matter how big the win is, it matters that it's a win. What you said was perfect. I'm in the customer acquisition business. If I can get customers to want to sign up to work with us, we are not only the best solution for them, but we can prove to them through our process and through our high level of service that we're worth staying with. So even if you just get I'm going to change the GFI at the bottom, that's a win. Pat yourself on the back because now you're their chosen electrician for when something else happens. They'll be the one that you call, or they'll be the one you'll be the one that they call. And in addition, they'll also be the one that you or they recommend.
I agree. And you know
So,
what? Steve agrees too with something we said earlier because he had some great feedback, little one-liner I've heard before, but whether you guys have or not is the question here. So here's what he says: whether you think you can or you can't, guess what? You're right.
mm-hmm.
Choice is yours, right? Really powerful statement. Now, I know we're going to run out of time here, so we got to be a little bit mindful of that. This one could
Okay.
keep going and going and going and going, guys. This is a all too important topic. And guess what? If you haven't experienced a slump yet, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Rainy days come. If you've just been up the whole way, then I'm actually more concerned for you than maybe someone who has been in a slump for a while, because up the whole way falls really hard. There
Mhm.
is a burnout portion. You can't be up all the way. That's the way life works. This thing is a roller coaster. Like we said last time, a negative assumes that there's a flat line in the middle, an average that we're comparing
Mhm.
to. We've got reference to the heights and to the lows. There's no such thing as up all the time. We have to experience problems to grow, in other words. And I've heard some of my greatest mentors in 2020, for example, with a pandemic, right? Growing more than they've ever grown before. When you hear someone that you look up to who's already in their billions of dollars earned and already in that significance and contribution beyond what we ever imagined for ourselves, and you hear them say something like, oh, I grew more than ever in my life before when COVID hit, you start to realize it's the problems that make us. This is where we
Mhm.
grow. That's the discomfort, that edge that we're all looking for. It happens where we're uncomfortable. Does that make sense?
It really does. It ties into the thought of we're either winning or we're learning. So the thought process behind it is if you're in this mentality where you feel like you're losing, you're already looking at the problem the wrong way. You may not close every sale. In fact, I'm expecting that you won't. Even someone like myself, I was able to close at an 80% consistent ratio. And I think that's really cool. But the thing is that I never expected to do more than that. And there are people who technically can, but at the same time, you know that you're not going to get everyone. Setting your expectation of having some realism in it is really important. And then the second thing is, even once you had that mentality, saying, okay, I didn't get this one. What lesson did I learn from it? If you can take one lesson from every time you lost a call, wouldn't you also be grateful every time you lose them too? Because if you were always winning, you'd never learn a thing.
Definitely. Definitely. And we're talking about something really important that I want to really focus on here. If there is no problem, there is a problem. And
Mhm.
we usually see it in these high season runners, right? Where guys are
Mhm.
training, like you say, and we've got a whole week-long series for this, training for the slow season. When we're
Mhm.
in that high season and everything seems to just come to us and everything we touch turns to gold,
Mhm.
that's where complacency sets in. That's why
Mhm.
champions aren't still the champions. Everyone loses the crown at some point. Show me someone who hasn't. Am I wrong to say that?
I don't think you're wrong to say it. And I love that you're asking that question the way you're asking it. Good
All
call on
right.
that.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
So
Action items. I want to break this out and I want to start us off today. Is that all right?
go for it, dude.
Because something that came up today that was super important is assuming you're in the slump of business, of sales, of something financial, that we have to start by defining the problem. If you're grouping those problems, if you're emotional about it, we have to take a step back. We have to be able to look at what's real here. What is the data telling us? And so I first want you to separate those problems out and think of it like a string of solutions that are required. And one problem at a time, I want you to take this framework through it and go, do I have what I need to fully understand this problem?
Mhm.
Do I have what I need to solve this problem? Who do I need or what do I need help with? I think that's so important. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think that's really great. The fact that you're focusing on like, what do I need and who do I need it from? I think that's a great kind of mentality. If I was going to take it further into the all-star action, my logic would then be going into what beyond can the customer see from you? And then what I mean by that is this: when you're working with your customers and you're trying to build that rapport, you have to understand that your customer is seeing you different than you're seeing you. You have an idea of what you're trying to do. I believe, as we've said before, it's better to understand than to be understood. So, the first thing I'm going to teach you for the all star action is try to truly understand what problem your customer is experiencing on an emotional level. If you can understand the emotional reason why they're calling you, you are less and less likely going to have that awkward, I can't bond with them moment. And at the end of the day, if they truly don't know you, but you knew them better than they know themselves, do you think it's not going to be likely you're going to end up walking away with an opportunity?
Yeah. Know, like, and trust, brother. I love that our action items just came out, a reflection of self problems and a reflection of their problems, because that's truly
Mhm.
where it begins. That's all we do, guys. We get paid to solve problems. If you're listening to this, then it's likely that electrical is how you solve those problems. That's your conduit for service. If you're not an electrician and you're listening to this, awesome. Thanks for listening. I'm a little confused. Please let us know what you're getting from it. We're here to help you and all electricians master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. I'm Clay Newmeyer. This is Joseph Lucani. Guys, cannot wait to see you again next time. Let us know where you heard us first and how you took this episode and if it helped you. All right. Cheers.
Take care.